Who is the most evil person you've ever met? My school friend's stepdad. He was violent even when friends visited her. One time he threatened us all, my friend, her sisters, and her mom, with a huge knife. Luckily, we were able to leave the apartment unharmed. When she was 14, it came out that he had sexually abused her for 2 years. That man is a fucking monster, and I hope he'll burn in hell. The bastard is out of jail already thanks to my country's shitty justice system. Reply: I hope he gets impaled by the dullest spear ever. I hope he drowns. I hope he suffers. Give your friend a hug from me, man. They deserve it. I worked a 2-day gig at a prison a few years ago. One of the prisoners was a really nice and polite guy around my age, and we chatted about fantasy books. It turned out we had pretty much the same taste. Out of curiosity, I Googled his name later. It turns out he was in prison for molesting 9-year-olds in possession of child pornography. I knew a youth pastor who sexually assaulted his own child and multiple members of his various youth groups over the years. He was charming and charismatic, great at playing the part, and put on such a good act that no one ever suspected him. A rumor even got out that he had been caught behaving inappropriately with a youth group member, and everyone disregarded it as untrue, especially as he was suddenly actively moving himself and his family out of state. He has, to this day, still never seen a consequence of his actions, aside from being cut out of one of his children's lives. He was my father, and I am his first victim. Reply: I'm really glad that you survived and are here to tell your story. A South African ex-police officer. He boasted about killing suspects by dropping them out of helicopters over the sea or shooting them point blank when they were caught instead of arresting them. I had a violently abusive ex. Shockingly, it wasn't him. It was his mother. The first time he started to beat me, I tried to leave his house, but his mother blocked the door and wouldn't let me out. She wanted me to take it and see what he's really like. She literally barricaded every exit. She could have just warned me about what he was like. But now I know why he turned out the way he did. And she was known locally for being so charitable and wonderful. That woman was an evil cunt. It turns out she harassed a girl before me, who managed to escape, to the point where she had to move away. I'm glad she's dead. I only wish the world had gotten to see who she really was instead of the local celebrations of a pure soul. My evil stepmother, who is now dead. I've often thought I should probably travel 2,000 plus miles to put a stake through her heart, just to make sure, though. My sister's ex-boyfriend. He was abusive to her, stabbed my cousin in an attempt to kill her for not sharing her beer, tried to kill me, and would have sold my nieces to anyone if given enough money. The last thing he did was write my sister a letter saying he forgave her for not being there to take the blame for him having drugs in a halfway house in a different town. My stepmother. That woman has no soul. She committed child abuse against her 3 stepkids. The youngest was 1. Runner-up would be my father. He sat back in silence and allowed the abuse. Fucked them both with rusty barbed wire. Going no contact was the best thing I ever did. Reply: my biological mom was my abuser. My dad just let it all happen. I'm glad you got peace from no contact as I did. I wish you all the best. My parents and their friends had a house in the mountains. Well, sort of. It's a house on top of a mountain in Poland. You can look it up on Wikipedia. It's called Medysoka. It was a psychedelic community of hippies. Everyone was welcome. There was always free tea and coffee for hikers, and people could stay the night if there was space. Anyway, one summer this guy showed up and stayed a few nights, which was absolutely normal, but he wouldn't take his leather gloves off for anything. I remember asking him about it. He said he didn't want to leave fingerprints. My child's instinct raised an alarm that my child's mind couldn't understand. One morning, a police squad showed up in a helicopter to arrest him. It turned out he was a serial killer. Probably a friend of mine I had. This guy told me straight up how he likes to destroy someone's self-image so he can rebuild them the way he wants them to be. He told me, "Don't worry, I don't use it on you." My grandmother. She was a beautiful woman when she was young. She seduced my grandfather and got pregnant, so he had to marry her. They went on to have 3 more children together. My 2 uncles and my aunt. But marriage and motherhood didn't agree with her. She started drinking and cheating on my grandfather. She was incredibly cruel to her children and did everything she could to make their lives miserable. My mother was only 14 years old when she was thrown out on the street to fend for herself. That was the final straw for my grandfather, and he left her. She managed to convince the family court judge to let their 2 youngest children stay with her. My uncle left as soon as he turned 18, but my aunt had had her entire personality destroyed by my grandmother's constant bullying and verbal abuse. My grandmother even went so far as to have her declared legally incompetent in court and got herself appointed as her legal guardian. She lived off of my aunt's disability check for years. The only time I ever met her and my aunt was at my grandfather's funeral. At that point, my aunt would have been in her early 40s, but she dressed like a much older woman, wouldn't speak unless someone spoke to her first, asked permission to use the bathroom at my mom's place, and didn't eat or drink without asking my grandmother's permission first. When my grandmother finally died, my aunt had to go live in a group home because she had 0 life skills. She didn't know how to cook, had never held a job, had never had her own bank account, didn't know how to pay bills or shop for groceries. Her social skills were also practically non-existent since my grandmother had kept her isolated at home and never allowed her to make friends. After a few years in the group home, she was finally able to move into her own place and get a part-time job. She got 3 years of freedom, and then she was diagnosed with cancer, an aggressive form of breast cancer. And she passed away 6 months later. My cousin. She's basically a black widow without the murder. She's ruined the lives of multiple men, cheats them out of their money one way or another, and then disappears. She also turned my entire extended family against my dad because he called her out on her bullshit and literal crimes. She's a lying, conniving, thieving bitch. My mother. No, Mom. When your dogs are sick, you don't have them unnecessarily put down because you're bored of them and want new ones. And when a dog dies in the house, you get it buried or cremated. You don't leave it there to rot for a year. And when your house is so dirty it's deemed a biohazard, you don't secretly take back your children that you've lost custody of to force them to continue living in filth. I could go on, but it would take me months. A psychiatrist who over-medicated me until I went completely manic. He kept adding medications until I was on 400 milligrams of Fexor, 50 milligrams Celexa, and 6 clonazepam pills a day. I had no idea what I was doing and destroyed every relationship until I was locked in a hospital. Then he took me off everything cold turkey. It turned out he was eventually fired or quit because he was ruining lives. I have basically no memory of what I did for over a year, and I ruined close relationships and my reputation permanently. I had a friend who would go to the store and put things in his pockets, then wait for a black family to walk to the door before he'd try to leave. When the detector went off and security came, they'd stop the black family and my friend would walk out the door with what he stole. His justification was, I didn't make the world racist. I'm just punishing the store for it. My childhood friend. We were best friends for years, but as we grew up, we kind of grew apart. Well, he ended up killing 3 people so that he could rob them of the couple $100 they had on them. He's now in prison for life without the possibility of parole. He asked me to put money on his books, and I'm like, hell nah, bro, you're a straight-up murderer. There was this guy in our church when I was younger, chairman of the deacons. My dad was the pastor. This asshole made my parents' lives hell, smiling all the while and saying praise God every other sentence. We left. Months later, come to find out, he was having an affair while his wife was dying of cancer with a woman in the church. After she died, they were married. Yep, in the same church this guy publicly said my dad was too imperfect to lead just weeks afterward. I always wanted to part his Ken doll hair with a tire iron. I was an investigator years ago and had to talk for a long time with a man in prison for multiple rape/murders with bodies still missing. I eventually got him to admit to some bodies by convincing him I could get him moved to a less secure facility near his mom. The guy was gleeful to talk with someone who was listening, and I had to develop rapport with him, so I engaged as though it was impressive. I lied to get him to tell us the locations, and when he found out, he killed himself. Hard job, but that man naming me in a suicide note was a point of pride. Ronnie Lee Gardner. He killed a bartender in a robbery gone wrong, then had his girlfriend sneak a gun into a courthouse and shot and killed an attorney. I was a court security officer during one of his death penalty appeals. I didn't technically meet him, but I was in court with him. That man just radiated evil. I know a guy who murdered his girlfriend and chopped her up because she found out he was actually married to my friend and had a kid and another on the way. He's in prison now. My rapist, also known as my cousin, my dad's nephew. When I was 10, my dad committed suicide in the house my mom, siblings, and I used to live in. My mom made us leave him. He was like a best friend to me, taught me how to skateboard, was funny, and accepted me for who I was. My only hope now was my cousin. Let's call him Richard. Richard and I have been best friends since I was born. He was 3 years older, and he was the only person I thought could help me. I slept over at his house the night before my dad's funeral with my younger brother. I was raped that night by him while my brother slept right next to us. The next day, I was traumatized, and it didn't help that it was my dad's funeral. Richard comes up to me and hugs me, acting like he didn't do anything. Then he says to me, "If you tell anyone, I'll kill myself just like how your dad did. It would be all your fault." And for the next 4 years, Richard sexually abused me. After he said that sentence at my dad's funeral, until I was 14, I thought I was the reason my dad killed himself. When I came out about what he did, his dad believed him over me, and now they're both sending my family and me death threats, and the police won't do anything. Hands down, the mother of one of the girls that bullied me when I was a child. Her daughter treated a lot of kids like hell, and her mother not only didn't do anything about it, but actively encouraged her to keep the act up and participated in it, either by actively laughing at the kids being mistreated or by scolding them if they tried to defend themselves from her daughter. I almost blame her for my traumas more than her daughter. Co-worker's husband. Seemed like a picture-perfect family from the outside, always pleasant at company functions, and their 3 kids were sweethearts. Then she brought a go bag to the office, and he found out she was going to run. Apparently abuse had been happening at home for years. He stabbed her to death that night, took the kids to school in the morning, and set the house on fire. He caught himself ablaze, and the neighbors saw him run out of the house. He's in prison for life, but good God, those poor children. My English teacher. He was one of the most popular teachers in school, but I got the heebie-jeebies from him, so I started watching him. Major pedo vibes. I noticed a pattern. He'd pick a freshman boy who was popular and be his best bud. Then suddenly the boy would avoid him like the plague, and there'd be a new kid. He would take kids to Europe for a school trip each year. He was very close to a friend of mine who went on one of the trips. He wouldn't talk to me after the trip and killed himself a week after the trip. He was a youth pastor who had Bible studies at his house. One day he moved to Thailand. I learned he is quite the file with the Alaska State Troopers regarding possible pedophilia. Someone from my school bragged about killing animals for fun, and one of my friends told me he once started showing people pictures of mutilated dead animals that he claimed to be responsible for. He killed animals like turtles, snakes, all sorts of rodents, and lots of bugs too, but still in a fucked up, torturous way. I don't know if he was evil as opposed to just a fucked up person, but I always felt really uncomfortable around him. As a defense attorney, I've met my share of murderers, assailants, grifters, thieves, and thugs. The one who sticks in my brain, who I think about at least once a week and shudder, who just makes my skin crawl knowing that this is someone who walks the same earth as me and my loved ones, was a guy who sexually abused his fiance's 7-year-old daughter. This was the only case I ever had that made me want to walk out of the courthouse and quit my job. Probably the woman who threatened to fire me for wanting to take time off to be with my newborn twins who had suffered from strokes while in NICU, despite my already being approved for the time off 5 months in advance. It's a toss-up between my ex-husband and my mother-in-law. Both are truly just not good people. My ex is a liar and an abuser. His current wife is leaving him and says to their daughter that she now knows and understands what I was trying to tell her years ago. He has no regard for anyone. Their daughter has come out as gay. She's 16, so he hasn't even spoken to her in a month. Their daughter says there are many times the police should have been called on him. He's one of those ones that'll hit the wall next to you, leaving holes, shake you, and say it didn't happen or that you made him do it, or my favorite, that he loves you so much he got that mad. He's also a cheater, got someone else pregnant while we were married. He's got 5 kids across 3 baby moms that we know of. My mother-in-law is hugely manipulative and a bigot. She's terrible. Gary Ridgway. Back when all the Green River Killer stuff was actively happening, bodies were being found pretty close to where I was living. As close as a quarter mile away. I was working in an auto parts store up off of Pacific Highway, where all the girls were going missing from. The Peterbilt plant that Gary worked in was just down the street, and he used to buy parts and shit from the store. He was just a dude, never would have imagined he was up to something, but then we had some pretty odd people coming into the store. As an aside, during spring break my senior year of high school, me and a handful of friends were camping up in the Greenwater area and noticed this truck come up a little ways from where we were camping around dusk. Truck stayed for a bit, then left, and we went on with our partying. They found a body up there a few weeks later. Oddly, also around this time, I had some friends reach out to me with their condolences because a young prostitute named XX was found in the woods, and everyone thought it was my girlfriend at the time. At the time, I was wondering why the hell they would think it was my girlfriend, figured it out a couple years later. Sorry for the ramble, just doing some time traveling in my mind. My grandfather, horrifically abusive to my father and his brothers. Beat my dad within an inch of his life with a 2x4. Would leave them out on the porch in Canadian winter weather in the middle of the night after waking them up so that he could yell at and abuse my grandmother. Had plenty of affairs and left my grandmother to care for her boys alone constantly. Raped several of my cousins and had CP on his computer. My dad is, and always has been, an amazing father. He said he wanted to give us everything his dad never gave him. When my grandfather died, I was ecstatic. I'm honestly not even sure he had more than 2 people at his funeral. My dad ended up becoming heavily addicted to alcohol and drugs, but he's over 31 years sober now. His brother died of a crack cocaine OD, and the other brother had a lifelong alcohol dependency, which led to health issues, and he had a heart attack shoveling snow during a massive snowstorm we had. The evil of my grandfather has had a ripple effect throughout my entire family. Sometimes I feel like murder is really not the worst thing you can do to a person. He left a mess that my family has been cleaning up their whole lives, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Did I mention I'm glad he's dead? Rot in hell, motherfucker. Kid who bullied me for a while in middle school got the death penalty for a triple murder years later. My stepbrother's kid is apparently out of prison now, but he's a sorry little piece of garbage, and his grandmother, my dad's 3rd wife, was his chief enabler. Meth head, thief, hooligan, etc. I have it on good authority he abused his younger brother, and I suspect, but I cannot prove he did some other things. Those people are completely out of our lives, but I really hate threads like this. It condenses and summarizes how much evil there is in the world to the exclusion of good and decent people.